To address the next question, this question that I did slip in earlier, but about this, about this constant thing about how Vivekananda talked about Christianity and other religions, his apparent love for Christianity, Jesus, and Muhammad, about all religions being equal. When actually he said all religions are true, meaning all of them lead to the final end goal might be the same, and also about when other religions do not treat the Hindus with the same respect that we are advised to give, then where is the logic of this one? And I think within the same question also, what is slipped in is the fact that the Ramakrishna Mutt itself seems to be that's what the questioner says, has seems to be catering to the requirements of the work. This is some this is I think all of us know this keeps coming up in social media as well. So perhaps we need to address it. So,
especially the December 25th puja.
Right. The December, yeah, every time December 24th onwards, you'll have a lot of
we have people losing their mind over that.
You want to start with that?
I'll just quickly say, because I don't want to take up time. See, one of the reasons why they have this sentiment for December 25th was that the day they took sannyasa was December 25th. After they took sannyasa, one of them remembered that it was December 25th. So it was a date of very great significance to them. Vivekananda used to go around with two books. One was Bhagavad Gita, one was Imitation of Christ,
right,
which he found to be a very, very spiritual. And I myself think it is one of the greatest spiritual books ever written. So there was a little tendency at that time to think of these things in a Western, if you look at the English that they used to use, even Aurobindo is guilty of this. It was very biblical English,
Yes.
They would write in cadences and those nuances and those rhythms of the King James, the King James version of English. So it was just part of the education. It was part of the mindset.
And peppered with the Lord and all of those things.
Yeah. And Almighty, as Rashi has pointed out, I would actually like Rashi to take this, because he has pointed out that no spiritual organization is going to alter something done by the founder.
Yes.
Correct.
So, but the so-called deference to the alien faith is not so true, because he's also the guy who picked up that missionary abusing Hinduism and dangled him over the side of the ship. If you keep this up, I'll drop you into the water. So, it's not. And he's also the guy who very famously said, we must oppose conversion, because every Hindu who goes out of the fold is not only one Hindu the less, but one enemy the more.
Right.
Yes.
So, after that clarity, what I myself don't like what happened on December 25th, but I understand we have to suck it up. It's not going to change. But I would rather that Rashi answers that, because he has very good nuance on that.
In fact, this question exactly, I would like to start with the first thing that you ended with, that statement. In fact, it was just before Swami Vivekananda's death, I think a year or so, maybe a year or two, 2 years before that, when his interview was taken in Prabuddha Bharat, which is the official publication of the Ramakrishna Mutt. And the flow of the conversation, in fact, the whole interview is fantastic. So they go into questions of history, and he mentions that, according to some Islamic texts, when they first came to India, there was about this million amount of people, and then after a few centuries, the amount comes down, and various things. So he goes into certain discussions about conversions, and he in fact he uses a specific term. Now it could be because the English that was used at that era was slightly different from what we used. So he used to refer in that interview to people who have converted as perverts. Okay, it's a perversion of religion that has happened. That is why these people have converted. And this perversion is happening either through inducement or through the soul. Now, and then in the flow of that, he mentions that every man who gets out of the Hindu fold is not only a man less, but an enemy more. I don't think there is a more categorical, more brilliant, statement in this regard, because indeed what we have seen, and history is evident, in this, that as conversions increase, initially you may be somebody may be converting for whatever reason, but eventually when a critical mass is assumed over centuries of a new religion or faith or something, automatically it ends up causing some form of it. It acts like a like a disease, like a virus that attacks the main body of the religion, which is Sanatana Dharma, which is connected to this land, and we see the consequences of it. I mean, we have seen it innumerable number of times. There is hardly any, it's surprising if somebody gets surprised by listening to this fact. That means they're not paying attention to reality. So this is not only not surprising, but this is one of the most brilliant statements I feel that Swamiji made, and this is also a statement that he made just about a year or so before his death. So it is not like, you cannot put it that, okay, he was young and he was hot-blooded and he said something like that, and then later on tomorrow he says that, no, we are all the same. No, he is saying something that is at the maximum level of maturity that he attained, an intellectual maturity. Let's not talk about the spiritual aspect, through his interactions with people, through his reading of people. So it's a very standard thing that as you go about life, as you read more, as you interact, as you see things, your opinions also get shaped, they get nuanced. So here is Swami Vivekananda, and his last statement is this, that anybody who comes out of the Hindu fold is turning to be an enemy eventually. That much is certain. Now, there's a second point that's very important to remember, the context, the times when Vivekananda was he lived. We were at a position at the time where Calcutta and Bengal was perhaps the most strongest epicenter of Christian conversion. This was like, the British Empire had its capital there, missionaries used to pour their money, there was one after the other, all sorts of people used to come, and they had this clear aim that, okay, let's also project that instances of dharma, everything is backward, it's more pagan, it's heathen, you need to get out of that. The more advanced form of religion is the Western religion, the Christian religion, and things like that. And they also had that, the colonizers' attitude that, see, we are dominant over you, so obviously our religion and culture is better than yours. So that environment was very much present at that time. There were people from middle class families and higher middle class families who used to convert to Christianity. Okay, so it's not like that was not the era where what we use the term like, somebody converts out of some kind of gift or something that is given to them and they convert. No, that was a period when people who are middle class Hindus and higher middle class Hindus used to convert, and for two specific reasons. They thought that, okay, it was an aspirational conversion. Aspirational, you convert to their religion, so you are closer to them, and you are closer to them means you get more benefits out of them, and you are separate from the masses. You are better than the masses. A sense of elitism, colonialism, and conversion all were mixed together into this heady cocktail, and there were a large number of middle class people used to convert. It is this crowd, this conversion, which was put to an end effectively by Swami Vivekananda. And this is not my statement at all. I'm not, you may call me that I'm biased or something. No, this is exactly what S.R. Goel writes. And he's one of the most, I don't think he needs any introduction, that, the kind of research and authenticity and the painstaking details into which he has gone in these aspects of history. And he says that very clearly, that if not for Swami Vivekananda, the middle class of India would have converted to Christianity long back. He was the one who stopped it. And how did he stop it? It's the most interesting thing. He doesn't stop it by constantly every other day coming into a pulpit and saying, okay, everything about the Christians are wrong, let's throw their book. Yeah, if the occasion arises, there are places where he strongly criticizes Christianity. And he calls it, various types of things. And he mentions that when he was in the West, the Christian, the priests and the fathers of the various denominations, they used to even try and poison him, because they thought that his influence was so strong that people are getting out of their religion and, developing a strange fascination and interest for a very pagan religion. He mentions all that. But what essentially he does is that he suddenly makes a whole nation who's psychologically defeated suddenly feel proud about who you are. You feel proud about your culture, about your religion, that, you have a far superior base foundation and a much ancient foundation, etc. And the moment you start feeling confident about who you are, your religion, your identity, the middle class conversion to Christianity immediately came to an end. What was left after that? So the missionaries and all, they started then targeting people who are economically disadvantaged, whether they're tribals or in rural areas, and you give them some gifts or this or that, or you pay them some money so that they can convert. So that conversion started after Swami Vivekananda. So he has to be credited as a man who effectively, by some peculiar, and this is the greatness of his character. There's no other way I can describe it. It's not that he's doing some magic and he's chanting a mantra, he's doing a of his thumb and then everything changes. No, Swami Vivekananda becomes Swami Vivekananda as Swami Vivekananda exists, and that itself puts an end to Christian conversion from the middle class Hindu community. That's the net result of that man's life. And he didn't even have to put in much of an effort. He didn't have to every day come and say that, oh, I hate that, you worship this and you worship that, etc. He was in fact very well versed in their scriptures also. But at the same time, his conversations is to be, I find, a certain degree of nuance in it. So he's not saying that the religion is wrong or there is no spiritual merit in it. He's saying that there is some good in that, but there is also a lot of things that are problematic. And history says that because of these problems, you end up creating more difficulties, more negative impact overall, etc., etc. So net result is saying that if you take the whole statement, everything that is saying in right context, you say that no, there is no need to convert to that religion. It's by and large inferior to what we already have. So what we have already takes in elements from there and then sublimates it and makes it into much greater. And this is the same criticism he has even for Islam. So he is one of the first individuals, by the way, to my knowledge, who makes a very interesting statement after reading the Quran, that there are parts of it which are absolutely brilliant. The parts of certain parts of the Quran which are sublime, and certain parts of it which is absolutely barbaric, and not only barbaric, it's like of the lowest, the product of the lowest human mind. So something like that, he says. And then he makes a statement that the founder of this religion is perhaps one of those examples where a person has a certain spiritual experience. There's an awakening of the mystical force, which we Hindus and the Hatha Yogis and the yogic tradition believes in, called the Kundalini Shakti. But if that does not reach its proper culmination, and that reaching its culmination requires you to have a guru, at least a competent guru to guide you, because without the guru or somebody, as we say, an Uttar sadhak of the higher caliber, you by your own will not be able to take it to the right destination. So if that does not happen, that energy, it is so tremendous, it can get stuck in some of the other chakras or something, and which will manifest as some degree of perversion into the person's behavior or something like that. So I'm not going into the details of the yogic aspect of this because that itself goes into there's a lot of thing in there, but more or less, so he gives the idea. So there is some truth in this book, in this text from the deserts, in what Prophet Muhammad had written, but also there's a lot of things that are complete nonsense, and this can only be explained by the fact that a person has a certain degree of spiritual experience, but due to lack of guides, due to lack of any other person to guide him properly, etc. So it ends up into a more problematic zone, whose net result is that the religion that comes out is very powerful, but it is also very dangerous. Dangerous to the extent that, history is already evident, you don't need to apply too much of intuitive ability to understand what consequences the rise of Islam had for the non-Muslims. So this I find is a very fantastic, two things I find here. One is that Swami Vivekananda by his nature was extremely truthful. So if he felt that something is the truth, it does not matter whether that person next to him feels happy about it, sad about it, accepts it, does not matter. He's going to tell it exactly as he thought it was. Number one point. Number two, at various points I find, overall, if you take his statements together, there's a nuance in what he is trying to say. And he remembered that he did not have the luxury to actually sit down and write his thoughts down. In writing, you have the scope that I'll write something tomorrow. I feel that, okay, it's not coming out exactly as I think, so let me change a comma here, add another phrase there, etc. So his interactions were impromptu, spontaneous interactions with people. So they used to ask him a question, and he used to have to answer that question immediately. So given all these factors together, I feel that there is a certain degree of nuance in which he approaches both these religions. He says that there is some truth in it, but he also says there's a lot of problem in it. So take both these two statements together, perhaps what he's saying is not that bad. And whether you accept it or not, it remains a fact that it is because of Swami Vivekananda, because of his character, because of his nature, his whole complete life, that conversions from the middle class Hindu to Christianity completely came to a stop, because you don't need the bottom line of it today. If we put it in our words, it was just not cool to be a Christian anymore for the middle class. That's all. I mean, why would you want to be a Christian when you can be a Hindu itself? So that put an end to completely the middle class. After that, did not convert anymore. Conversion then started among the, the tribals, the lower, the villages, the rural areas, etc., where they used to, what we have, that, the term we use called rise back conversion, etc. So all these things came into more prominence and force after that. And this is not my observation, by the way. This is what Sri S.R. Goel actually writes in his essays on Swami Vivekananda, some essays.
Very nice. I think Vivekananda says in his own very nice way. He says, the founder of the religion stumbled upon the truth.
Yes, right, exactly.
That's
I
kind of
remember that.
his way of saying
Yes.
what. So
He also
Ram,
said, show me one place where your religion succeeded without the sword. People don't realize
right.
what all he has actually said.
Yes.
People don't realize what all he actually said bluntly.
Yes.
He actually said, show me one.
Yeah.
One, I say, not two.
Yes.
He was on fire, and he was in his full, show me one, I say, not two, where you have succeeded without the sword.